Hermes link. Ice blue me. Tell my friends like I do not know who permanent me. Don't let me go. Wait for the kicker.
You live on the ground?
Bury me now, now.
Send it
Get big ass word, my nigga.
Go like that.
Yeah.
This song, what come on, two?
Who's down?
We're on a countdown, nigga, 2 minutes. 2 minute warning.
Yeah.
2 minute warning. 2 minute warning. 2 minutes.
Yeah. Turn me up, Cruz.
Why y'all niggas in here? Go to my YouTube.
You're not in there yet.
Go to my YouTube. Link in my Instagram bio. Turn down if you want. You wanna watch it? Alright, you can watch it. Go to my YouTube, bro.
Whoa, turn it up, I can't hear it.
I'll turn it down. They're gonna put it on the TV.
Yeah. The what?
They put it on the TV. Where's the controller, bro? The white one. Where's the white one?
So Apple is, as of 2018, is the second most profitable company in the world.
Go to my YouTube. Why is there 3 people in here? Why is there 3 people in here right now?
2? What do you mean?
You got 2 people in here, bro.
You're not live.
Appreciate what you have while you have it.
Then get the fuck out my. I don't want nobody in here. Go to my YouTube.
Did you go? It just went down.
What?
When you said
You ain't
You
gonna
don't
do
want
anything
anybody-
without these people's support. I wish somebody would.
Okay,
and that person was me.
Apple was not put here by accident. Didn't get this position.
There.
Here we go.
No,
Delete,
no one's.
and so require replacing, achieved by frequent changes in design, termination of the supply of spare parts, and the use of non-durable materials. So if you were to take the word Apple and place it at the top of this page, replacing it with planned obsolescence, the definition of the word would literally, align. It would be one and the same. It would be perfect. You know what I'm saying? And there were actually there was actually lawsuits filed against Apple due to planned obsolescence in their iPhones. And this is just a screenshot I took from the website of the Intelligencer. That's how you pronounce it. And you can see that the screenshot is actually inverted. And you'll notice throughout the presentation that all my screenshots from the web are inverted
ready,
just
bro.
for the sake of
Ready now?
the eyes, a little bit easier on the eyes, I would say. So this is a real thing. We're speaking of planned obsolescence. But that's not the only thing that they're doing, right? I'm sure many of you are aware of the fact that there is planned obsolescence in the iPhones and in their products and in many other products that are out there. But this was back in 2018 when they had that lawsuit. Okay. And one more thing I wanted to point out in regards to the planned obsolescence was this here, this table. Okay, so you can see, for those in the back,
Hold it
you
in
can
your
see
For those in the back of the class.
the original iPhone, and we have the newest iPhone.
I think we're just
iPhone
lining you
11
up, right?
Pro. No, I
Not really cutting your hair, so.
So, what I wanted to focus in on, when it comes to this table, was the lifespan of the phones. So you can see at the top, iPhone, the original iPhone, had the max lifespan of 2 years, 11 months. The iPhone 3, 2 years, 7 months, a little bit less, but it goes up. iPhone 3GS, 4 years, 2 months. iPhone 4, same thing. iPhone 4S, 4 years, 10. 5, 4 years, 11. iPhone 5C, which is a cheaper version, 3 years, 11 months. iPhone 5S, 5 years, 11 months. If you see it, it gradually goes up and peaks at the iPhone 5S, right? For those who remember the iPhone 5S was the more squared off design. That's when they introduced the Touch ID. It was definitely one of the iPhones, along with the iPhone 4 when they made that large design adjustment, when they went from the more round design to the squared off design. This time frame right here from the iPhone 4 to the iPhone 5S is what I would say pretty much solidified Apple as a dominant, cell phone company. You know what I'm saying? So it was this time frame where Apple really, positioned themselves as an authority in the industry. See what I'm saying? And then you'll see here, iPhone 6. This is when they changed the design once again to the more roundish, sleek design. And you'll notice the lifespan actually decreases at the iPhone 6, and it decreases at the 6S Plus, and it decreases at the SE, and it decreases at the 7, and it decreases at the 8. Now, obviously, it's going to decrease because they were released at a later date, and obviously these lifespan metrics aren't updated every single day. This is just a screenshot from Wikipedia, but nonetheless, there's a clear upward trend here and a clear downward trend here. So these devices are clearly being developed to be recycled, so that you pay every single year that extra amount, whatever that may be.
Well, are you listening
You'll notice
carefully?
the price actually goes up as the lifespan goes down, right? But moving forward, we're going to talk about the design, because this is important moving forward in this presentation. So this is the iPhone 3GS. This was, the original iPhone design. You take note of the more roundish edges and curves on it. In comparison to the iPhone 4 to the iPhone 5S, you notice that it's a more cutting edge, elegant design.
I think that's what everyone's gonna have to fucking say.
At this point, it's a little bit subjective, it's a little bit opinion based, but this is really important, okay? Because many people agree with these facts that I'm saying, okay? With these things that I'm saying. So this was when, Apple really put themselves in a position of authority due to the fact of the level of advancement, of perceived advancement in their technologies and in their devices. Okay?
That's okay.
So you'll notice here they changed the design.
Go
back
to my
the
YouTube
old
channel.
design. Now, was that intentional?
To get long.
Yes. And I'm gonna get into that. So you'll see they went from the oval to the square. They blew up. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's a dope device." Everybody copied these devices. Everybody had this phone. Facts. And then they went back to the iPhone round design. And up until now, present day, they have this design. Okay? And you'll notice again the round design. See what I'm saying? Until now, the new iPhone 12 is going to be coming out. Okay, you can see here, it is definitely a very, very, very good looking iPhone in my opinion, and in many other people's opinion. I'm sure you would agree. But I'm just going to show you guys the demonstration here of the renderings of the phone. Very good looking. Looks a lot like the iPhone 5, but more advanced, of course. 4 cameras flush on the back for the first time.
Good, bro.
4 models. Give you the illusion that you have a choice. And shout out to Zone of Tech for these, my bad. Wanted to actually pause it there. Okay. Sorry guys. Here you'll see the comparison of the round and the squared off design. Okay, you can clearly see that the squared off design would be a little bit more superior in its appearance. But that is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. This is the majority of people's opinion. Okay. But moving on, as you guys probably saw, this definition of planned emergence. Okay. Planned emergence, this is what's taking place when we're talking about them going from the original design to the square design, back to the round design, and now moving forward into the more squared up design again. Okay, so I'll read the definition for you. Planned emergence is a management philosophy which states that strategies do not come into existence based on one-time decisions, but rather it exists through making small decisions that are evaluated periodically. These small decisions are not made randomly, but logically through experimentation and learning. So this is what's taking place right before your eyes. These people are Apple are aware of the fact that this design is a lot more popular and people like it a lot more in comparison to this roundish design. So they held it back before introducing the 5G technology in their devices. So that once that new design comes out and you really like it, and there's an affordable version of it and the really expensive version of it that has the 5G capability, everyone's gonna want to get it. You see what I'm saying? And that's the point I'm trying to make here. Okay? And the major takeaways from planned emergence would be that it exists through making small decisions that are evaluated periodically. So it's not about the big decisions you make in life. It's about those small decisions that you make and if you're evaluating them or not. You know what I mean? So it's about the small decisions you make in life. And furthermore, these small decisions are not made randomly, but logically through experimentation and learning. So it's important that you experiment and you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes. Okay? Using logic. Okay, people? What I'm saying right now is a little bit subjective, but if you really look at it, it's truly logical. What's happening. Okay? And the definition of emergence: the process of coming into view or becoming exposed after being concealed. iPhone 12. It's probably been around since 2015.
Am I making sense?
They just released
Here I am.
Right, to gave you some other shit, gave you some extra money, so that they hit you with that alley-oop down the road when the 5G come out, because they probably invested into
What the fuck is like delayed?
into the ITU, which is the
Sorry, one
International
person looking?
Telecommunications Unit, which we're going to get into later down the road, and that's going to help them make more money and essentially have more power. See what I'm saying? And the second definition would be the process of coming into being or becoming important or prominent. So this is what's happening right now with the iPhone 12 and 5G technology. Okay? Tradition, a long established custom or belief that has been passed on from one generation to another. In Apple, they got you stuck waiting in lines at the release. Not anymore, obviously, but now you just order it online and it's ready for you at the store. It's a lot more organized now. Right? But they had to. That's another example of the planned emergence. They let people wait outside in line. They let people get crazy. They let the media talk about it. This is planned emergence that's occurring before your eyes when we're talking about Apple. Okay? This is happening with many other companies as well. You think Amazon can't just go, you know? But I ain't gonna get into that. We're not talking about that. Okay? So moving forward, okay? What is 5G? Because this is the talk right now. You see what I'm saying? If it's not the talk for you, it's the talk now. Alright? So 5G will use spectrum in the existing LTE frequency range from 600 megahertz.
If it's not the talk for you, it's the talk now.
Also, a millimeter wave bands from 24 to 86 gigahertz. Now that's the key that we're talking about here. The 24 to 86 gigahertz is where you want to be focusing your attention. Okay? 5G technologies have to satisfy ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union, IMT 2020 requirements, and or the 3GPP release 15, while IMT 2020 specifies data rates of 20 gigabits a second. 5G speed in sub 6 gigahertz bands is similar to 4G. Okay, so 5G is already up and running, and I'm going to show you examples of what it looks like, just so you can be on the lookout for it. But when they're talking about the IMT 2020 requirements, we're not talking about no health and safety issues. We're talking about speed. So they don't even take into consideration the health and safety of, you know, I don't say the masses or the general public. You see what I'm saying? They're just thinking about the speed of it. You know what I mean? But moving forward, when we're talking about 5G, we're talking about electromagnetism. We're talking about electromagnetism. Electric, magnetic. Magnetic. Okay? And the definition of it is relating to the interrelation of electric currents or fields and magnetic fields. So when we're talking about electromagnetism, we're literally just talking about light. You see what I'm saying? We're talking about all of the existence that you are even able to perceive or comprehend. You see? Your body emits naturally an EMF that permeates from the heart. It permeates from the middle. Since the heart and it goes around, it's considered your aura. You know what I mean? And also we're talking about the earth has its own electromagnetic field. You see what I'm saying? And we're one and the same because we're earthlings. We're not separate. You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about 5G, we're talking about electromagnetism. Okay? So you'll see on the left I have the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay? But before we dive into that, it's important that we understand what's going on here. Okay? So the electromagnetic spectrum, what it is essentially is photons that are vibrating and are traveling at different frequencies. That's all that's happening. It's all the same thing, which is a photon, but it's just vibrating and traveling at different frequencies. Okay? So if you look down at the bottom, extremely low frequencies would be 3 hertz, and they can travel up to 100,000 kilometers. That's the wavelength. That's what we're talking about, the wavelength of it. It's very, very, very long wavelengths. Right?
What do you miss
But
most
it's a low
about
frequency.
school?
But when you get to higher frequencies, like gamma rays, we're talking about, I don't even know what EHZ is, sorry. But I know what GHZ, we got gigahertz and terahertz, I think that is. And these are millimeter waves, so they're wave is a millimeter. You see what I'm saying? And now you can only imagine how small this would be. The gamma rays. Okay. But we're gonna zoom in here to understand what the photon is a little better. Okay? The photon is a type of elementary particle. It is the quantum of the electromagnetic field,
Watch the
including
fucking
electromagnetic
presentation,
radiation
so watch us watch the
such as
presentation,
light and radio waves, and the force carrier for the electromagnetic force, even when static
done.
via virtual particles.
When your eyebrows
pictures
done?
on the computer.
Alright.
Okay, so the photon
Well, go
is
take your shirt.
essentially
Oh yeah, hold on.
the basis from which everything exists.
Yo, come here real quick.
Okay. But one thing I wanted to point out is the fact that it was theorized by Albert Einstein in 1905. And for anybody who knows what theorized means, that would mean that it's a theory, right? It's theorized. It's
You
not.
guys want to keep the noise down? I gotta work tonight.
Proven back and proven to be true.
The presentation is live, nigga.
By truth.
Oh no shit.
Okay.
Want the link?
It's only a theory, so it's not fully understood yet. It's not.
I'll send it to you.
completely
Text me on my
understood.
phone and I'll send it from my computer.
You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about 5G, we're talking about people who are messing and dealing with the electromagnetic spectrum who don't even fully understand. See what I'm saying? So that's just the,
Victor already said hi.
Okay? A photon is the smallest
said hi.
discrete amount of quantum or
said hi.
electromagnetic radiation. It is the basic unit of all light. This is commonly referred to as the speed of light detonated by the letter C. Okay, we're gonna get into the letter C a little bit later. Shout out to those who know what that is. Okay, so back on the electromagnetic spectrum, you can see here, we'll zoom in. This is visible light. Okay, this is the visible light spectrum. Okay, so when we're talking about the actual reality, we're just talking about the electromagnetic spectrum, a portion of it, a very small portion of it. Right? But we're not going to get too deep into that right now. We'll have more discussion. So what we're going to focus in on is these gigahertz,
Turn down.
extremely high frequencies. Remember, 5G is going to utilize 24 to 86 gigahertz frequencies. Okay? Remember that. 24 to 86, but it's going to use around 60 gigahertz. That's like the median of it, the average, I would say. Okay? So we're talking about extremely high frequencies ranging from 30 to 300 gigahertz.
Okay,
Read
here
this
I'm
out.
good.
This is a screenshot from Wikipedia. Yes, I use Wikipedia. What they were talking about in school, talking about it's not credible. So, extremely high frequencies. Extremely high frequency, or EHF, is the International Telecommunications Union. And I can stop right there, but I'm going to continue. It's the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, designation for the band of radio frequencies in the electromagnetic spectrum from 30 to 300 gigahertz. It lies between super high frequency bands and the far infrared band, the lower part of which is the terahertz. Radio waves in this band have wavelengths from 10 to 1 millimeter, and it is also called millimeter band, and radiation in this band is called millimeter wave, sometimes abbreviated MMV or MMW or MMW or
What are you
MMW.
licking on your food?
Millimeter
That's how
wave
you catch
electromagnetic
COVID.
waves were first investigated by Bengali
Why did you not say 19?
physicist
19.
Jagdish Chandra Bose during 1894 to 1896, when he reached up to 60 gigahertz in his experiments.
It's good, Nathan.
So in 1894, these dudes was messing with the electromagnetic spectrum at 60 gigahertz. Okay, so that would mean we have a little bit of catching up to do when it comes to our understanding of this information. Moving forward,
Why is there shit everywhere?
the ITU.
Why is the socks on the ground?
Formation, May 17th, 1865, 154 years
Peter,
ago.
not mine.
Okay. Now let me just read you something real quick.
What the fuck is this, man?
The International
That don't go there,
Telecommunications
nigga.
Union, originally the International Telegraph Union, is a specialized agency of the United Nations that is responsible for issues that concern information and communication technologies. It is the oldest global international organization that you've probably never heard. Okay? The ITU coordinates the shared global use of the radio spectrum, promotes international cooperation in assigning satellite orbits, works to improve telecommunication infrastructures in the developing world, and assists in the development and coordination of worldwide technical standards. The ITU is also active in areas of broadband internet, latest generation wireless technologies, Air Force and Marine navigation, radio astronomy, satellite-based meteorology, convergence in fixed mobile phones, internet access, data, voice, TV broadcasting, and next generation networks. So they are active in these areas, meaning they are essentially in control of all what I just said. You know what I'm saying? So this is important information to know. These are the people who are in control of what is happening when it comes to 5G. So you'll see here on the right, shout out to Fingerprint Orgonite. This is a 5G tower that I took a picture of on my Instagram. And that's essentially what it looks like. There are also 5G towers that are disguised as palm trees. I kid you not, I encourage you to go look it up, to check it out. I'm not going to show it here, but just know that this is what it looks like. They're little white rectangle things. And you'll see them on street signs, you'll see them on the street lights, you'll see them on the side of poles, you'll see them in this sort of thing. And it really just looks like an alien type of shit, you know what I mean? It just looks like some aliens put that there, really.
Alien type shit.
But this was a article I found
Like,
from a news analyst
look like alien type of
in
shit.
2014. 60 gigahertz of frequency to watch, and it reads, it's not likely that 60 gigahertz will become the next big frequencies in wireless world, with both short-range and wider area applications ahead for the tiny beam of this unlicensed millimeter radio technology. So it's unlicensed. So that would mean that essentially anybody can go put the shit up with consent from the city or the country or whoever. You know what I mean? So the frequency, part of the V-band frequency in the US, is considered among the millimeter radio wave bands. Millimeter wave radios ride on frequencies from 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz until recently. 60 gigahertz has typically been used for military communications. Okay, so obviously it's been used for the military before being rolled out in the world. Just like hydrogen fuel cell cars, I think it is. Right. But moving forward, the active denial system. So this is gonna give you guys something to raise your eyebrows to. You know what I mean? So we're talking about the ADS. And the active denial system is designed to protect the innocent, minimize fatalities, and limit collateral damage across a range of military operations. How does it work? The active denial technology uses radio frequency millimeter waves at frequencies of 95 gigahertz. Okay, remember, 5G, 2486 gigahertz on the electromagnetic spectrum, and the ADS uses 95 gigahertz. Okay, I'm going to have a video play to demonstrate exactly what this does. Okay? But essentially, you'll see...
Yo, whose fucking shit is this, bro?
Here,
Bring that nigga to me.
it limits collateral damage across a range of military operations. And what do we experience right now in the world? Military rolling around the streets. You know what I mean? Everywhere you look. But I'm going to play this video.
Pentagon has a heat ray. It's invisible.
Come here, nigga.
It's silent. It's real. But it's not deadly.
Put this shit away. Before I throw it in the garbage.
Officially, it's called the active denial system. Here's how the military says it works. It shoots an invisible beam of intense
So they have a focus. It's direct energy. See what I'm saying? Directed energy.
targets that penetrate the skin about 1/64th of an inch deep.
Whoever's playing is not the same brings me now.
That makes people
These people can't even stand in front of it.
instinctively move away from the beam. The heat ray can reach a little more than half a mile away.
Half a mile.
Its creators say it's harmless and offers troops a non-lethal alternative during threatening confrontations. The active denial system can be used for crowd control, securing a perimeter, and protecting a conflict.
Stop
This
going
technology has been around for a while, more than a decade, but it's been keeping a low profile. The Marines have used it in training exercises. In 2012, the military said the heat ray was available for operations worldwide, but there were no current plans for deployment. In the future, the heat ray may go portable. The Pentagon wants to develop a smaller, lighter version, easier for troops to carry. Wider use of unconventional ideas like the heat ray may lead to more new weapons that protect troops without hurting civilians.
So you saw there that those people couldn't even stand being in front of the electromagnetic waves that were being projected to them through that direct energy weapon that operates at 95 gigahertz. Okay? So now think. If 5G is operating at 24 to 86 gigahertz, and it's just sitting there outside your house all day, all night, every day, every night, what do you think that's doing? What do you think that's doing to you? Those people couldn't stand in front of that one direct energy weapon for more than a second. But these 5G towers are going to be outside your house sitting there all day, all night, cooking you up. And we're going to get into that. We're going to dive deeper. So all the information that I'm going to be presenting to you is coming from PubMed Central, which is a free digital repository that archives open full-text scholarly articles that have been published within the biomedical.
Reading up this nigga act.
It's real deal.
At least I'm doing it though.
Oh, layerly.
This is real deal credibility.
Everybody go to my YouTube. Why is there niggas in here? Go to my YouTube.
Credible information.
Get half an hour late.
This is where I'm getting all my information from.
What's your mouth, brother? I
So
will
here's a
slap you.
screenshot of the article that I am going to be reading off. You can see the link at the top if you want to go ahead and check it out. It's a real deal link.
You guys
It's a real deal
stupid.
page. But I'm going to move forward because I don't like the white. You know what I mean? So, mobile phone
Sound like
radiation
the white.
induces reactive
Oh,
oxygen
yeah,
species.
you're so explicit about shit.
Reactive oxygen
Yeah,
species
she does.
production
You don't
and
leave
DNA
no
human
guessing.
spermatozoa, which is human sperm.
I don't like
Now
the
we're
white.
gonna go in a little bit more on reactive oxygen species and exactly what that is.
Idiot.
Okay, but essentially I just want to read this to you. We're not even gonna really I won't read the background, right? In recent times, there has been more controversy over the impact of electromagnetic radiation on human health. The significance of mobile phone radiation on male reproduction is a key element of this debate, since several studies have suggested a relationship between mobile phone use and semen quality.
Can you sit your ass down?
But I'm not gonna read the whole
Nobody
thing.
wants to see you bouncing around.
You know, like y'all out there have a hard time paying attention more than a goldfish. You know what I'm saying? But the principal findings of this study, same article, this is a study. Okay, this was a scientific experiment done. So purified human spermatozoa are exposed to radio frequency
Well, I'm trying to watch the
electromagnetic
video,
radiation,
man.
or RF EMR, tuned to 1.8 gigahertz. Key point. The covering a range of specific absorption rates from 0. Whatever to 2.7.5 whatever. In step with increasing SAR, which is absorption rates, motility and vitality were significantly reduced after the electromagnetic radiation exposure, while the mitochondrial generation of reactive oxygen species and DNA fragmentation were significantly elevated.
Bruh.
Furthermore, we also observed highly significant relationship between the absorption rate, the oxidative DNA damage biomarker, and DNA fragmentation after the electromagnetic radiation exposure. Okay, so we're going to dissect what was just said here. But the main key here is the 1.8 gigahertz. The human sperm was exposed to 1.8 gigahertz
The sperm?
at controlled absorption rates, right? 5G, you can't control the absorption rate. See what I'm saying? It just happens. It's just there. It's just present. Okay? But we're going to look at this. In step with
That sounds
increasing
like
absorption
population
rate,
control.
motility and vitality were significantly reduced. Okay? So let's go in on that. And this was published online in 2009. Okay? Motility is the ability of an organism to move independently
I know
using
that.
metabolic energy. This is in contrast to mobility, which describes the ability of an object to be moved. Motility is genetically determined, but may be affected by environmental factors. So that was reduced after the exposure to the electromagnetic radiation of 1.8 gigahertz. 24 to 86 gigahertz, killing outside the hospital. Vitality, the state of being strong and active. Energy, the power given continuum
Graciana.
of life, present in all living things. So we're literally talking about your life force energy. We're talking about your chi, your prana. We're talking about God within you. We're talking about your metabolic energy, right? That you're able to be self-sustained of. So when you're exposed to this electromagnetic radiation, that is reduced. Your ability to move independently. Furthermore, the mitochondrial generation of reactive oxygen species and DNA fragmentation were significantly elevated. Okay, so we're going to go into what reactive oxygen species is and DNA fragmentation. And DNA fragmentation obviously is self-explanatory, but it's the separation or breaking of DNA strands into pieces.
It's
It can
pretty
be done
self-explanatory.
intentionally
Yeah.
by laboratory personnel or by cells, or can occur spontaneously. Spontaneous or accidental DNA fragmentation is fragmentation that gradually accumulates in a cell. Okay, so we're talking about damage of your DNA, which was elevated in that study after exposure to 1.8 gigahertz in relation to the human spermatozoa. This happened to the human sperm at 1.8 gigahertz, people.
You something hurt.
Pay attention. Now I'm going to read this off real quick because it's
just
important to
joking,
now
just so you know.
the corona. You see what I'm saying? But remember that reactive oxygen species was elevated alongside the DNA fragmentation, and motility and vitality were reduced. Okay, so we're talking about reactive oxygen species being elevated now. So this is from the same website.
The ROS,
Same thing.
it damages
Another
any
page.
cells. It doesn't give a fuck.
The
But
title
it
reads
damages
reactive
your,
oxygen
like,
species, inflammation,
Your
and lung disease.
mucosal, your sperm, like the
Reactive
cells that
oxygen
regenerate
species,
the
or
most.
ROS,
Your
are
bones.
well recognized for playing a dual role as both deleterious and beneficial species. ROS are products of normal cellular metabolism and under psychological conditions participate
Physiological.
in maintenance of cellular redox homeostasis. Overproduction of ROS results in oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is a deleterious process that leads to lung damage and consequently to various disease states. The lung is a highly specialized organ that facilitates uptake of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide. I'll go on. Persistent inhalation of the invading pathogens or toxic agents may result in overwhelming production of ROS. Oxidants initiate a number of pathological processes, including inflammation of the airways, which may contribute to the pathogenesis and or exacerbation of airway disease. Okay. During inflammation, enhanced ROS production may induce recurring DNA damage, inhibition of apoptosis, and activation of protein genes
Apoptosis is when the
by
cell kills itself.
predisposed individuals to lung disease. In this review, we discussed mechanisms of oxidative stress in the lungs, the role of oxidants in lung disease, pathogenesis, and extravasation. So if you
time you got it out, nigga.
Enhanced ROS production, which is reactive oxygen species,
It's okay, brother.
That's
why fucking nursing school hard for me
DNA
too.
damage.
All those fucking.
Who the fuck am I?
It's another
May
language.
also,
Trust me.
Lead
It's
to
spelled
lung
straight.
damage
Yeah.
and to various disease states.
It's
So
all
we're talking
based.
about
It's all
lung
based on
disequilibrium
Latin.
when we're talking about reactive oxygen species being produced. And what we just read before was when the human spermatozoa was
Go to my
exposed
YouTube.
to 1.8
Go to
gigahertz.
my YouTube.
ROS production was elevated alongside DNA fragmentation. 1.8 gigahertz, people. We're talking about 24 to 86 gigahertz when we're talking about 5G. Okay?
What?
But I have my buddy, Dr.
So
Bird.
times
He's
24.
gonna help you guys out to understand ROS a little better.
And they're putting them up everywhere.
Because I feel like it's important that you understand.
Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to attempt to define ROS. This will probably come up if you're reading some of the studies with Alzheimer's,
Got my time.
the benefits of ketosis. You might see ROS come up, and I just want to define it because it can be a little confusing.
Get me my chlorophyll drops right
In
now.
reality, it's pretty simple. ROS stands for Reactive Oxygen Species. Now, what the heck does that mean? So ROS can either be a free radical or a non-free radical
You and him are like
involving
two different
oxygen.
vibes.
So this kind of let's back up. What is a free
I'm
radical?
like, this fucking nigga's in this.
Paired electrons. So if something that's paired, if you just kind of envision it like a little
I'm about to make
disc,
quesadilla, you
and
want?
two little weights on the
Sure,
outside
brother.
that spin.
Can I skip
very symmetrical.
the
Nothing's gonna
salsa?
happen.
Thank
It's real
you.
nice and smooth.
Huh?
But if you take those electrons out,
Yes, please.
and you have an unpaired electron, and it starts to spin or move,
Do you have any of that
it can
Nando
really
sauce?
be a radical
Can you
and
put
move
that on
in
it?
a radical
Yeah,
way
I'll
and create destruction
Just one.
because it does not have a paired electron. Okay? So free radicals tend to destroy things. Now, the body makes ROS. Also, ROS can be generated from the environment as
The
well.
body makes it because
coming into the
iron.
body. But the question
iron
is,
isn't
why
attached
would
to
your
your-
body
to your,
make something that's destructive?
Oxygen?
That's the question, and this will help you
Pay
understand
attention.
what it is. Well, there is
Did he just
a
tell me to pay
natural
attention?
process, a natural
Why are you talking to
in
him?
the body. It's called
Who said pay
apoptosis.
attention?
The guy on the
Apoptosis
computer.
is a condition where your body is actually killing
That was
off
me.
certain cells. Now you might say, well, that's a bad
I
thing,
know.
but actually
Why
it's
did
a central
you
Go to my YouTube.
Okay, because your
Let's
body
be
has
donkey.
This is literally
Killing
everything
off
I
cells
learned
is essential
in
for
nursing.
life.
urge to survive, so it's looking at the greater good. If there's certain cells that are mutated, altered, they're dysfunctional, then the body has to get rid of them. And that's when it
Kind of like how there's dysfunctional people in this world who perpetuate ignorance. They need to be removed. Apoptosis.
so
Okay,
the
5G.
ability to eliminate certain things that we don't want.
You heard that?
If that involves
Yeah,
whatever, that's a good thing. So even
Hey, pop toasters on your ass, nigga.
actually kill off microbes.
But it's a
That's how
self,
dismantle
like
certain
you do it to
viruses.
yourself.
It's natural.
It just happens.
Interesting
The earth has
balance between
apoptosis called
free
the
radicals
iceberg.
or oxidants and antioxidants. So your body can make antioxidants as well. And you can get
No,
things
but like
vitamin
it's
C,
not
this
any of the
whole
other
balance,
cells that tell
that
it,
happens in the body.
like there's
So
some
when you're
cells that
exposed
tell
to
other
a
cells to
certain
kill
stress,
itself,
we call
but
it oxidative
it's
stress.
mostly the cell itself telling itself
Exposure to
to kill itself.
EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies.
Like it doesn't.
And that's where you see
School
white people
stressing
becoming
people
light
out.
workers, exposing her ass, yo.
Work stressing you out.
Exposing them, yo. It's the same thing.
the list goes on, right? Fill in the blanks.
So let's say you have a certain metal in your body from iron,
Wait, what?
and that created a mutation in your mitochondria. Well, your body would produce this to get rid of that. The body does not want mutated cells. Exposure to chemicals, UV radiation that would come from external, or exercise produces higher levels of ROS to actually kill off the damaged muscle cells that need to be replaced. And it's replaced by the stem cells, so it actually just grows back. Hypoxia, decreased oxygen, pollution, smoking, infection. So your body is constantly cleaning all this stuff up and replacing it. So this is a real positive thing. So you probably in your house
I really hope
have
people watch
hydrogen
this.
peroxide, and you can put it on
It's gonna
a
get
cup
close.
or a wound and see
It's
it
the premiere right now.
foam up. Because hydrogen peroxide is this, and that actually helps to kill off certain microbes. Okay, same principle. What's really cool is that ketones
Like, this is
reduce
what every
the
human on earth
excess
needs to know.
ROS in the
Exactly.
body.
That's why I
So
put it together like this.
ketones
Now
can
we're going
act
to
as
the
an
end.
antioxidant.
Remember I was
And
sharing
protect the nerves. They're very
last summer,
neuroprotective.
I think,
And this is why ketones are so
things
good for
that
the
cause
brain.
oxidative
And
stress.
a high sugar diet
No,
or high
but
carb diet
I'm sure
is
you're
so
doing that.
terrible for the brain because it actually causes so much destruction. And it leads to things like dementia and eventually Alzheimer's. Anyway, I just wanted to explain what this is.
So hopefully you guys got some value from that. Check out Dr. Berg. He has a lot of information. But it's up to you guys to put the pieces together like I'm doing right now. Okay. And just to further my point with the 5G, at 60 gigahertz, oxygen molecules will interact with electromagnetic radiation and absorb the energy. This means 60 gigahertz is not a good frequency for use in long-range radar or communications because the oxygen absorbs the electromagnetic radiation and the signal. Okay? So when we're talking about deforestation, we're talking about less oxygen. We're talking about the forest burn. We're talking about less oxygen. We're talking about you. We're talking about a being who is full of oxygen, right? And here you are, full of oxygen, absorbing the frequencies of the electromagnetic radiation at 60 gigahertz. That's going to be all around you in the city. Now, obviously, I showed you guys the problems. Hopefully, they make sense. But obviously, I'm going to provide you with solutions. Okay, people? Always solutions. First things first, remember we were talking about DNA fragmentation. And when we're talking about DNA, I want to give you guys an analogy that I think is really, puts things into perspective very well. So just like your phone, just like your computer, just like any other device, you are an organic device operating, right? And depending on your health, you can be at a high operation or you can be at a low operation. But nonetheless, when we're talking about DNA, we're talking about essentially the disk that you put into the device that is then read by the device, which is you, and then that's the game that you're playing. That's the reality that you're experiencing. You see what I'm saying? That's you. You know what I mean? And that's a really good analogy to use to understand DNA and its importance. So when we're talking about DNA fragmentation, we're talking about reality fragmentation. Right? Nature's fragmentation. You're getting scratches on the disc. The game ain't gonna work.
I hate that shit.
Don't want to scratch the disc too much. You know
I
what
hate
Xbox
scratches on
360,
my
when you have
disc.
the game in there, you tip the Xbox over. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody who knows what I'm talking about. But moving forward, chromatin. Okay.
If one more
The DNA
bitch does
carries the
this
cell's genetic
challenge,
instructions.
let's
You.
go to the washroom again.
The major proteins in chromatin are histones, which helps package the DNA in a compact form that fits in the cell's nucleus. Changes in chromatin structure are associated with DNA replication and gene expression.
I learned this in microbiology, so I'm just going to watch it.
Essentially, a device, an organic device, that's going to package up your DNA and allow it to be expressed, and it's going to keep it together, and so it fits into the nucleus of the cell, so everything works properly. See what I'm saying? So each cell in your body has a nucleus, and each nucleus is the chromatin, and each chromatin is the DNA that's packaged up so that it can be read. So it's packaged up in here, then it's gone and it's read out here. See what I'm saying? But this is the first solution that we're going to be talking about, but I have to break it down before I provide you with the solution. You got to be able to understand what I'm talking about before I give you the solution. So this is a this is a page in the book, I think, but it reads the roles of nucleus and cytoplasm in melanin elaboration from the anatomical laboratories of the School of Medicine of Yale University and the University of Pittsburgh. And shout out to all my brothers out there, my brothers and sisters out there who know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Yale University. Alright, shout out to Nate the Great. Okay, but I'm just going to read the highlighted part because this is going to explain some things. It's going to put some things together in regards to the chromatin. So, the more recent work on the formation of melanin seeks to derive this pigment from chromatin elements. In 1889, Murat Sechin attributed the formation of melanin to the breaking down of the cell and especially to the destruction of the nucleus. So we know inside the nucleus is the chromatin and a couple other things, right? So the formation of melanin attributed to the breaking down of the nucleus, right? Jardish makes the statement in this language I can't read, but nonetheless, in the discussion of pigment formation and melanosarcomas, which we're going to get into in a minute, recognizes 5 stages in the process based on the appearance of the nucleus. He believes the melanin granules to be small particles of chromatin, which are extruded from the nucleus, impoverishing the latter in the process. Okay, so we're going to get into melanosarcomas and the melanin granules. So here's the key. He believes the melanin granules to be small particles of chromatin, which are extruded from the nucleus, so that the formation of melanin can be induced. See what I'm saying?
Oh, they excluded it.
Granule, a small compact particle of a substance. So we're talking about melanin granules from the chromatin, right? So that would mean that melanin is produced from the chromatin, from the destruction of the nucleus. Now, it's not necessarily just the chromatin, but it's the nucleus in general, so there must be more in there than just the chromatin, right? So it's the chromatin is inside the nucleus, and when the nucleus is broken down, then melanin is formulated, okay? So it's kind of like a reverse engineering what's happening here. And this was copywritten in 1915 in Yale University. So those of you out there who know what Yale University is, it's time for us to really take this serious, take this information serious, because we have a lot of catching up to do if this was done in 1915. They knew this in 1915, right? So a granule was a small compact particle of a substance. Okay, so now we're going to get into the melanosarcoma. Melanosarcoma is a tumor of comparative rarity, usually arising in pre-existing masses of pigment-bearing cells, such as pigmented moles or nevi on the skin,
It's a
the
tumor.
fluid coat of the eye, the black part of the eye, I think that is, the pia arachnoid, and the rectum or anus. Metastatic tumors arising from the primary sources in these locations may be found in particularly any organ of the body. So the melanosarcomas are things like moles, like it's like imagine melanin, but into a tumor, and that's where you get the moles from. It's like a tumor of melanin, okay, and they're found in particularly any part of the body. So that would mean that the melanosarcoma is the chromatin, because when destruction of the nucleus occurs, the melanin is produced, and in the nucleus is the chromatin. You see what I'm saying? You guys understand what I'm trying to say here? the chromatin is made up of melanosarcoma, which is tumored melanin, solidified melanin, okay, carbon. Okay, but we're gonna move forward. And when we're talking about solutions, this is the first solution. This is your first line of defense. Okay, we're talking about melanin. Melanin, the three different types. You got eumelanin, phenomelanin, and neuromelanin. Okay?
So good.
Now zoom in. Melanin means black amino and is a color pigment composed of a hydrocarbon chain which has various amino, nitrogen-based compounds attached to it. It is carbon that gives melanin its blackness. Carbon is the organizing molecule that gives melanin its structure. Major key. Okay. Study. Melanin protects us from skin cancer, but can also cause it. Whatever. UVA radiation causes lesions or DNA damage
No bias
to
whatsoever.
melanocytes, which we're going to get into in a minute, which are the skin cells that produce the skin pigment known as melanin. Melanin is a protective pigment in skin, blocking UV radiation from damaging DNA and potentially causing skin cancer. So therefore, melanin blocks UV radiation, which is a frequency of the light photon on the electromagnetic spectrum of a higher frequency, right? So if you had higher levels of melanin, that would mean that you would be protected from electromagnetic frequencies, right? That would mean the chromatin, if you had higher levels of melanin, not even higher levels, but higher qualities of it from the sun exposure that you get, which we're gonna get into in a minute. That would mean that it would be able to protect your DNA. The melanosarcoma, the solidified melanin that is encapsulates your DNA strands, your chromosomes, right? If you had a higher quality of it, if you got a lot of sunlight, that would mean you would be able to be protected from gamma rays all the way down to extremely low frequency waves. Right? But since we are all vitamin D deficient, you're being isolated in your home right now. You get no sunlight. You eat dead food. You eat rice. You eat potatoes. You eat corn flour. You eat all this shit with no substance or chlorophyll in it, which is the plant version of melanin, right? This is gonna cause the quality of your melanin to be reduced, and therefore not allowing you to be protected from external influences in regards to the electromagnetic frequencies.
And all that shit.
Okay? So it's important that we understand this. And a quick little side note, carbon is the sixth element on the periodic table, which would mean it has 6 proton, 6 neutron, and 6 electron. 666 blackness. So when you see all these motherfuckers, so pardon my language, all these people throwing up the 666 in Hollywood and all that stuff, we're talking about the suppression of the understanding of this melanin. Because most of you watching this probably didn't even know that there were 3 different types of melanin. And furthermore, there's probably more than 3 different types of melanin. There's probably like 9. You know what I mean? Each different type probably has its subdivisions. And you saw in the studies that I was looking at, we were talking about 1915. None of you heard about this.
Oh, this is so good.
Some of you probably have, but most of you haven't. Okay? So when we're talking about melanin, we're talking about protection, the first line of defense before the other solutions that are going to give you at the end. Okay? Melanocytes, which we just talked about.
Brother, how do you make your
Melanocytes are melanin producing neutral crest derived cells located in the bottom layer of the skin's epidermis, the middle layer of the eye, the inner ear, vaginal